Alright, so in this video we will be discussing the Megalodon versus the Leviathan. And something that we just need to get out of the way now, because I'm sure there will be people in the comments saying this, or people just getting mad over this. We do not know any of what I'm about to say for a fact. We are fairly certain. We are almost 100% positive on some of this stuff. But especially with the Leviathan, it is a somewhat new discovery. So we are still discovering new things about it not every day, but all the time. And we still need to wait years and years before we can get more accurate information on this kind of stuff. But until then, this is the information we have. So this is the information I'm going to be using. And to start it off, we will be doing the Leviathan. So the Leviathan was about 13.5 to 17.5 meters, or 44 to 57 feet long, and weighing between 50 to 57 tons. This is likely fairly accurate just because we have the skull and we are able to kind of base the size of it off of current sperm whales and relatives from the past and current. And its bite size, or not its bite size, its bite force, this is somewhat controversial. That's not the right word, but I don't know the 100% right word, but you know what I mean. Its bite force was between 57,994 newtons to 100,000 newtons. But there are some estimates that have it up to 200,000 newtons. The biggest problem with this, though, is this is a fairly not necessarily believed estimate. This is more of a higher end, assuming that its muscles worked this way and the stuff like that, and it isn't seen as true by a majority of paleontologists and is relatively ignored. The highest bite force I have seen that is accepted by the majority of paleontologists is 150,000 newtons roughly. That's the max that most believe it could have been to. And for what it ate and for how it acted, it likely hunted other whales, smaller sharks, maybe its own species, bigger fish, turtles, stuff like that. And something that we do know is that it was in packs of sorts, but we don't know to the extent of how long and how permanent. It is likely that it was just two adults, and the kids being 1 to 3-ish, I believe it said. And it is unlikely that the kids stayed around with the parents its whole life. Now, of course, there are likely exceptions of that happening, but the general consensus is that that didn't happen. And for just kind of how it lived on its own, it was in roughly not deep, but fairly deep waters in more of the open ocean, swimming around in that kind of area. Now for the Megalodon, it was between 15 to 24.3 meters, and that is 49 to 80 feet long. And its weight was between 50 to 94 tons. Now, the 24 meters and 94 tons is a new study. And this study is basing the size off of different shark species that aren't the great white shark, as that is kind of how we've been determining the length of the Megalodon and the weight for years upon years now. And due to recent discoveries, we have found out that likely isn't a very accurate way to get its size. Now believed to be more slender than bulky, but a lot longer. Now again, this could be false. It could be 10 meters while the Leviathan was 80 fucking meters. We don't know. And we simply won't know the true sizes of these animals, these honestly just beautiful creatures that I wish we were able to at least see nowadays. Not necessarily still be alive, but a nice little hologram for real. With the Megalodon's bite force being 108,004, not 400, 514 newtons to 182,201 newtons. Now, the Megalodon, as we know, hunted whales, hunted turtles, likely hunted its own species, territorial boots, boots for real, between the species and stuff like that, and living in more coastal, warmer waters. And it is extremely important to note that it is cool to imagine these animals duking it out. It likely rarely happened. If you put the average megalodon and the average leviathan in the same territory and had them meet, they would likely just ignore each other. Even if the megalodon was 80 feet, it would likely be a lot more likely to attack the leviathan. It would also probably just want to avoid a confrontation due to just the risk. Even in modern animals nowadays, with animals they could kill fairly easily, like with lions and hyenas, a lion could massacre a hyena fairly easily if it wanted to. But the biggest problem is just the risk of injury it could get. The Leviathan could definitely injure the Megalodon, and the Megalodon could definitely injure the Leviathan. So it's not really worth the risk for the two of them when they can ignore each other, especially given they live in different parts of the ocean. So food isn't necessarily something they would have to compete over a lot, and they would just ignore each other and go their own ways. There were definitely some kind of interactions between them, but not much, relatively wise. There were probably hundreds to maybe even thousands of interactions, but given the amount there were likely were and how long they lived for, there wasn't that much encounters between the two species. Most encounters is going them seeing each other, maybe doing a quick little bluff towards them, seeing how they react, and then moving on, continuing their business. So it is important to note that. Now, in terms of who would win. Now, this is the part where it gets heated, it gets violent even. About 8 to 9 times out of 10, the Megalodon would win these encounters. And this isn't going off of the 80-foot fucking estimates. If the Megalodon was 80 feet long, 94 tons, the Leviathan is never beating the Megalodon without some kind of help. That's just how it is. The Leviathan definitely could win. It could do enough damage to win, but the thing is, the Megalodon has years and years of experience hunting whales, while the only way to get experience with a Megalodon is fighting a Megalodon, as there weren't other 50 to 80 foot fucking sharks casually swimming around doing backflips hunting fucking seals. You feel me? So the only way to get experience hunting and fighting a Megalodon is actually doing it. And the chances of survival is extremely slim. And even if one were to survive, the injuries likely would kill it off, or it wouldn't want to interact with a Megalodon ever again, just knowing what it did. So that would make it somewhat hard for the Leviathan to know what to do. Obviously, it will know fins, that's a weakness, and tail, that's a weakness. This is stuff that they would both know from hunting whales. But what the Leviathan likely wouldn't know is the gills is a weakness, and that would be the spot to attack if it were to fight one. Now, if a Leviathan does, that's when it would win. If a Leviathan were to injure the gills, that would likely get it killed. Even if it was one side of it, it might be able to survive with only one side of gills, but that it would not live a very good life, and it would have to move around a lot more to get the oxygen it needs. So, assuming it was able to do that, it could win, but that is the only real way I can see the Leviathan winning. Especially with the Megalodon being more of an ambush predator, it would likely get the first attack. Now, if you were to have these two come together face to face, again, the Megalodon would likely come out of this scenario winning, just having the much more powerful bite force, being able to tear off whale fins with likely not ease, but not needing to struggle all that much, which is crazy to do. Now, this is, again, important to note that we don't know the sizes, the bite forces. We don't really know anything about these animals outside of how their head looked. We have a few vertebrae fossils of the Megalodon. I believe we have two. We have one that is about 36 feet long, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have another one that is only a few of the fossils, but they are significantly larger than the other vertebrae that we found. And with the Leviathan, pretty much the same issue with the Megalodon. We have found pretty much only skull fossils. Even then, that's rare, and we've only found a few other fossils of its vertebrae and its fins, which again doesn't really help us discover the size, because we don't know what part of the vertebrae, what part of the fin it's meant to be, and stuff like that. So, yes, the Megalodon would win these encounters just due to its size, its bite force, and just its experience hunting whales throughout its entire life. That was likely its main source of food, so it had to know how to hunt whales perfectly, or else it would die. And yeah, that's going to be the end of this one. I know there's going to be some people probably mad about it, throwing a hissy fit, but you just need to remember, one, a fight between these two likely wouldn't happen. Probably 1 out of 100 encounters would end up in a fight, and even less would end up in a full fight to the death. It would likely be a quick nibble, quick bite. They'd both be like, oh, fuck you, I'm going home, and they would leave. And also, until we have found a full fossil of these animals, or we have gotten a lot better technology and we get more fossils to study just in general, we don't know the accuracy of these sizes. As of now, it is seeming that the 80-foot, 94-ton Megalodon is the more accurate side, just based off of its relatives and the assumption that we needed to compare the sizes with it to the Megalodon, or not the Megalodon, the great white, and make its sizes from there. And also, what people have to remember is, simply because I'm saying it loses does not mean I am being disrespectful towards the animal itself, because this is not true. It was a beautiful creature, like every dinosaur is. There definitely are some that beautiful is a stretch, but at the end of the day, these are extinct animals that we will never have the privilege of seeing. Who knows, maybe one day some mad scientist will spare no expense and we'll see them in real life. But this won't be, and this will likely just never happen just in general. And if it does, it will be, I don't even know how many centuries down the line. We are struggling to clone animals like the mammoth and the saber-tooth that we have the blood and the DNA of. So it is just important to remember that just because it loses, that doesn't mean it is less of an animal. Which animal you prefer should not depend on how it wins in a fight. My personal favorite dinosaur is the Stegosaurus, and I'm aware it loses to animals like the T Rex, the Triceratops, likely the Acro, likely the Giga, stuff like that. My favorite prehistoric animal, just in general, the Stegosaurus or the Deinosuchus, with the Megalodon being up there. And again, they lose. There are stuff they simply would not beat, like the new ichthyosaur that we've discovered that may have been longer than the blue whale. Even at 80 feet, maybe. But it is just important to know that your favorite animal losing does not make it less. If anything, it makes it more. That's a lie, but it doesn't affect how cool it is and how just magnificent these creatures truly were during their point in time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's information about the Leviathan I don't know, this is the newest information I could personally find, but there may be information out there that I haven't seen yet. So if there is information, please let me know about it. I would just like to know in general, even if it has nothing to do with this. Just fun facts about anything really. And yeah, peace out.